Want to learn how to turn this into this? Keep watching. Before we make our t-shirt yarn, we gotta talk a bit about t-shirt selection. Everyone cautions against using a t-shirt with a decal on the chest like this, and I agree, plain t-shirts make the best yarn, but the ink on my shirt is very worn and thin, and this is the shirt I have, so I'm going to work with it. The side seam is also something to consider. A t-shirt that doesn't have a seam down the side is going to make the best yarn. See how the seam on the sleeve doesn't continue down the side of the shirt? That is ideal. To start, you're going to lay your t-shirt out as flat as possible and cut a straight line from one underarm to the other. You're going to keep the lower half. You can discard the sleeves, or for you overachievers out there, I'll show you how to turn the sleeves into yarn too at the end. Check for any tags and cut those off. Then we're going to release this bottom hem. You can just cut off the hem if you can't be bothered, but there's probably an extra yard or so of fabric tucked away in the hem here, so I'm just going to rip the seam at the bottom, stick my scissors inside the hem, and cut all along the seam at the bottom. And you can see I cut my t-shirt a little bit. That was an oopsie, but it's not going to be a big deal. I'll fix it when I start cutting the strips. So what you're going to want to do is fold your t-shirt almost in half, leaving about an inch gap at the top. I wanted to get this super smooth, and this t-shirt is so well loved, so thin that it took a few attempts at folding, but I finally got it. And since this t-shirt is so thin, I'm even going to fold it over one more time, but that part's optional. Then you're going to cut 1/2 to 1 inch strips by cutting from the bottom up to your fold, cutting through the first fold line, but not all the way through the top of the shirt. I'm doing 1 inch strips because, like I said, my t-shirt is incredibly thin. But if you have a newer shirt or a thicker shirt, you may want to consider doing 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch strips. And this is going to make probably a chunky weight. I'd say category 5 weight yarn. Now my last little strip here was a little uneven because the shirt didn't wear evenly on the front and the back, so the front strip was thinner than the back strip. I'm just going to have to do a little finagling with that during the next step. So then what you're going to want to do is unfurl everything you just did and put this little backbone along your arm. I'm going to demonstrate on this little piece of cardboard just so it's easier for you to see. And like I said, I'm just going to finagle this little extra thick piece I have at the bottom by cutting the thicker piece in half. You most likely won't have to do this. So pretend that bottom little strip isn't there. What you're going to do is cut diagonally up from the bottom to the first slit. To release your first end of yarn. Then you're going to continue like that, cutting diagonally from right to left, upwards, from the bottom right slit to the slit across from it. This will ensure that your t-shirt yarn will be one continuous strand without any breaks. And do that all along the backbone of your t-shirt. When you get to the very last slit, just cut all the way through the top. And you're done. You've got one continuous piece of t-shirt yarn. Now the last little thing to do is to very, very gently tug on your yarn, and you'll see the edges will want to curl up. And then you can start winding it into a ball. Just continue that process by gently pulling on your yarn, winding a little bit up, pull and wind and pull and wind. And there's your little ball of t-shirt yarn. Let's clean up some of the t-shirt crumbs before we start our extra credit assignment. So if you really must turn the entire t-shirt into yarn, here's how you do it. You start by cutting off the sleeves. Cut just along the edge of that sleeve seam. Then what you want to do is cut the sleeve seam completely off of the yoke. There's the little seams. Toss that aside, and then you'll cut off the entire collar because it's kind of a different texture and it won't turn into yarn quite right. And toss the collar aside. Now we have this virtually seamless yoke portion. And the way we're going to turn this into yarn is by folding it in half. And then line up one sleeve edge to the other sleeve edge. Now, we don't have the little guide like we did on the body of the t-shirt, so you're just going to have to eyeball it by cutting your strips the same width once again and stopping about an inch from the top. Unfurl that. And the way you cut these strips is by cutting the first strip at the bottom, skip the slit across from the one you just cut, and cut the next one. Skip the slit across, cut the next one. a little bit more fabric here that I can turn into yarn, so I'm just going to cut that strip and then cut off the shoulder seams. So there's a nice little piece of yarn, but be very careful when you're pulling this yarn because the joins are much weaker than they are on the body of the shirt. There will be a little chunk that won't roll up and you can just cut it off very carefully. See, the joins are very weak. So just be careful when you're pulling this yarn and trimming the little flappy bits. And do the same thing on the other side. There was a little bit of shoulder fabric that wound up not being usable. And you can join these pieces of t-shirt yarn just by tying them together. Now onto the sleeves. As we did with the body of the sweater, you're going to want to rip the seam of the hem to release that little bit of hem fabric. And cut all along the hem of the sleeve. Then you're going to fold the thicker half of the sleeve up to the thinner half. Cut strips in the same manner that you did on the body of the t-shirt. And for this last little bit, I'm just going to unfold it and cut straight up. Now you have another tiny backbone where you can do the same process as we did on the body of the shirt by cutting diagonally from slit to slit. And up through the top for one continuous piece. And you'll gently pull that yarn to curl the edges as well. So this is our little ball that we made from the yoke of the t-shirt. This is the ball we made from the body of the t-shirt. So you can decide if the extra work is worth it for you. And this is all I had left over. So I hope you like this tutorial and give making t-shirt yarn a little try. I've linked the relevant blog post to this video down below. And let me know what you're going to make with your t-shirt yarn. Thanks for watching. Bye!